These are some of the most dangerous injuries in NBA history. And in this video, we're going to take a look at the plays that occurred and review our anatomy to understand just how dangerous these really were. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and the goal in this channel is to teach more about the medical side of the sports world. This is a YouTube compilation from the channel Dime, so let's take a look and react to how serious these were.
And first, Anthony Edwards dunked so hard, it came with the price.
Another turnover. Edwards gets it back and threw it down.
I remember watching this play in real time as it happened and seeing that he had done something serious to his hand. I believe Edwards ended up playing the whole rest of this game, but let's see if we can figure out this one.
And one. Immediately looked down at his hand.
So it wasn't actually on the dunk where this occurred. If we wind this back up a little bit, you'll see his left hand as he goes to extend that hand out. Basically, his finger gets hyperextended. So right here as he makes contact with the Jazz player's face, his finger is going to get hyperextended, and what I believe
immediately looked down at his hand
was a dislocation.
After the dunk.
Yeah, breaking a finger is one thing.
You can see here he's got the fingers buddy taped afterwards. Very common way to help try and stabilize the fingers after an injury. So this one really not that serious, not that dangerous. Finger joint dislocations are an extremely common thing that we'll see in any sport. Most often they're going to happen to either the PIP joint, which is the first joint here in the finger, or the DIP, which is the one further down. Whenever they dislocate, you can injure the supporting ligament structures and soft tissues on the backside or dorsal side of the joint or on the volar side of the joint. If there's a fracture, they require some brief immobilization and stabilization, but definitely very low on the overall dangerous scale.
Breaking a finger is one thing, but you wouldn't believe what happened to the next one, because Steph was in the middle of the game and broke his ass.
Steph with all the handle.
Also remember watching this one live in real time as he comes down.
Those are metal stairs.
Lands just directly on those metal stairs.
Down and in considerable.
Could see right away here as he was grabbing at the lower portion of his tailbone.
Comfort.
That was nasty. Well,
if we compare this to our biodigital anatomy model here, we're going to rotate around to look at exactly what structures are involved here. And in Steph's case, he suffered a tailbone contusion or a coccyx contusion. Zooming in on the backside here, of course, we have the nice, big, robust glute muscles. They're going to provide a lot of the cushion and stability. Your latissimus dorsi muscles are going to come down and insert, but then all the way down at the lower end of the tailbone, we're going to have first the sacrum. The sacrum is the lower portion of the spine. There are some nerve roots that exit out of these foramen to go and control the function of the lower limbs, but then just below that is going to be the coccyx, which is your tailbone. You can fracture your coccyx, but most of the time when people have an injury, it's from landing directly on that coccyx, like we saw happen over here with Steph. Most likely in his case, just a contusion. This is going to be pain management. There's not really any nerves to worry about here functionally around the coccyx, and so this is just a pain management concern. Again, overall, not that dangerous, especially as we'll find when it comes to spine injuries later on.
Considerable discomfort.
that was nasty. But what happened to LeBron made a stadium cringe. Because LeBron was going for a loose ball when this happened.
LeBron, ooh, down he goes, and he grabs his ankle. LeBron with his right ankle, and he's hurting.
He got it rolled up.
This one actually could have been very serious, and I think of all the injuries that LeBron has suffered, this had the potential to be the most lengthy of an absence and serious. We'll talk about why that injury could have been so severe for LeBron, but first I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, a company that's helping you take care of not your muscles and tendons, but helping you take care of your skin. Today's video is sponsored by Omnilux. Men, let's face it, most of us don't do enough to take care of our skin. We're really good and dedicated about things like building muscle, taking care of our hair, maybe keeping that beard in check, but we often neglect our skin. But let's change all that today. Omnilux is a world leader in medical grade LED light devices for skincare that make an exclusive LED light mask designed specifically for men. Think of it like a performance upgrade for your skin. It's a pain-free, non-invasive way to take care of your skin, requiring just 3 to 5 10-minute sessions per week for 4 to 6 weeks, and then future maintenance care as desired. Omnilux's LED light therapy is FDA cleared to help reduce fine lines and wrinkles. It helps to even out your skin texture, boost collagen production, and their men's mask is designed specifically for the thicker men's skin to get better and deeper penetration. Right now, if you click the link down in the description or scan the QR code on your screen, Omnilux is going to hook you up with 10% off your purchase. So if you want to do something to simplify your skincare with a performance upgrade and do something that I guarantee your significant other is going to be very impressed by when they see how dedicated you are to skincare, then check out Omnilux today. Again, 10% off by clicking the link down in the description or scanning the QR code. This injury for LeBron was a high ankle sprain. So here in this position, as his foot is fixed down on the ground. His ankle is a little bit dorsiflexed, meaning the toes are locked in the position upward. That's going to lock the ankle mortise of the ankle joint. And then as this load comes in from the outside, it's going to force his foot into this everted, externally rotated position right there. What that's going to do is it's going to cause the talus and the ankle joint to rotate and make the tibia and fibula want to spread apart from one another, which is going to pull on the high ankle ligament that sits right here as a stabilizer between that tibia and fibula. Thankfully, in LeBron's case, this wasn't too severe, but when these become really bad is when we'll see a dislocation of the ankle and a fracture. So something like what we saw happen with Dak Prescott. That's the worst case scenario here. Even a standard high ankle sprain can be a month, 6, 7 week recovery, but has the potential for surgery
with his right ankle, and he's hurting.
Thankfully, LeBron
rolled up on or something.
You got to be more careful around the king. But some injuries don't just hurt. They change the game forever. Just like what happened to Kawhi Leonard. See, Kawhi was cooking up the 73-9 Warriors. So Zaza Pachulia decided to end the fun for the fun guy.
Leonard fires from the corner. And Leonard goes down again. And he's in pain again in front of the Spurs bench.
This is a good one to follow up after LeBron's, because with LeBron, it was a high ankle sprain. This is a standard inversion, low ankle sprain. So remember, with LeBron, the foot rotated outwards. Here with Kawhi, the ankle is inverting in this position. That's going to injure the lateral structures on the outside of the ankle as opposed to the high ankle ligament. Definitely much lower in severity compared to a high ankle sprain. So yes, can cause a significant absence, but versus a high ankle sprain, much less dangerous of an injury here for Kawhi.
Corner. And Leonard goes down again. And he's in pain again in front of the Spurs bench.
The foul was so devastating, the NBA changed the rules to protect shooters forever. But even rules can't stop all the pain, especially when you're dealing with Nikola Jokic. You see, Markieff Morris thought he could rough up the MVP with a shoulder check, but the Joker came back even harder.
And Jokic, oh no! No! Keep the players on the bench. No. So they are bringing the stretcher out as they attend to Markieff Morris. Wow, what a turn of events here.
Damn, I bet you didn't know.
This is the most dangerous of any of these injuries we've reviewed so far, because this has the potential to cause a spinal cord injury. We can see as Morris is not paying attention here. He's not stabilizing, protecting his neck. And so as Jokic comes in and shoves him, what this does is cause a significant whiplash mechanism to his neck and to his cervical spine. Pay attention to when Morris is on the ground, what he's doing with his hands.
Keep the players on the bench. No.
Right there, that brief sudden whiplash.
So they are bringing the stretcher out.
Stretcher's coming out because there's concern for a spinal cord injury. And here on the ground, he's shaking out his hands. What can happen with something called central cord syndrome, where you stretch the spinal cord in the neck, it can cause like burning and pain in the hands. And so what they're seeing here with Morris, they're concerned about a neck injury. He's clearly got some neurologic symptoms in his hands, bringing out the stretcher to immobilize his neck before they can get him off for further evaluation. So absolutely the most dangerous one that we've seen so far, because while it looked fairly benign, an injury to the spinal cord in the neck is obviously going to be a much longer term concern with potential for paralysis in the muscles.
Markieff Morris. Wow, what a turn of events here.
Everybody thought he was kind of being a baby here, but this is
my man
definitely the
Markieff
most
was
dangerous and
sidelined for
concerning
5
thing
months.
we've seen so
But
far.
on the other hand, injury wasn't going to keep Steve Nash out. Pay attention to what he did after breaking his nose.
Nash took a shot. Steve trying to rearrange his nose. You see the black eye. So here is Steve Nash and Derek Fisher. I think he hit him with his head. It looks like he hit him with his head.
But that wasn't all. You see,
I love his teammate's face back here. Yeah,
Nash
this is
little
pretty
nose,
brutal. He's
and
basically
it
trying to
turned into a
reset his nose after this injury. And essentially, you know, a nasal fracture is going to be a painful injury. It's not going to be very dangerous at all. The only actual bone part of your nose is located up at the bridge of your nose. That's where the actual nasal bones are. And then everything down in the front is cartilage. So whenever you break your nose, you're actually breaking this top portion of the bone. You're not breaking it down at the tip. This is just where cartilage is. Most of the time, these are not going to need surgery, especially if they can be reduced back into proper alignment. You have to have some concern for something called a septal hematoma, where there's bleeding in the tissue on the inside of the nostrils. That can be very concerning. But a standard nasal injury, nose fracture, again, painful. Overall, not that dangerous unless there is a little bit of complication, which is very...
Rajon Rondo broke in a way that should never happen. See, Rondo was tussling with D-Wade before he fell and shocked the world.
Clock at 4, poked away, and then Wade pulls down Rondo. It was almost like he was trying to box him out.
So as Rondo goes down to the ground here, he suffered an elbow dislocation. The elbow joint is essentially a hinge joint where the humerus, the upper arm bone, is going to flex and extend up and down with a little bit of pronation and supination. Whenever that joint dislocates, typically the ulna of the forearm bone goes posterior on the backside of the humerus. When these happen, they're either simple or complex. Simple if there's no associated fracture, which is pretty unusual. Complex when there is a fracture. This, of course, has the potential to be very dangerous concerning, ligament injuries, instability in the elbow. Not as much in a basketball player compared to an overhead athlete, but absolutely a difficult thing in the moment. These are very hard to reduce and get back in place on the sidelines compared to something like a shoulder dislocation.
Oh, wow. You see how the left arm, hyperextended, boy.
But what happened to Carmelo still has everyone's minds bent. You see, Melo collapsed on the floor, and it seemed like nobody cared.
Anthony checked by Durant. Good defense. Anthony falls down and he travels.
It's almost like Kevin knew the exact move that Anthony was trying to execute.
Intercepts the pass. Anthony out on the floor. What is he doing? Playing around it. And so now Jim Gillen, the Nuggets athletic trainer, comes onto the floor.
Dude had a concussion.
Thankfully, this was just a concussion. These situations are always really scary as us speaking on the sidelines covering these events because we don't know if people are down because they're just tired, if their ankle hurts, their knee hurts. It didn't look like in this case there was really any significant injury to the head that would obviously make you think about that. And so here the medical staff we're worried about cardiac problems. We're worried about much more serious life-threatening things than a concussion in this moment. So thankfully, just a concussion had the potential when we see just a downed athlete to be much more concerning for cardiac, but thankfully this was just...
Orleans Noel banged bodies mid-air and was knocked out cold.
Steven Adams, he has been all of that this year. Went up to block the shot of Wiggins.
This one much more obvious for concussion. We can see here as Noel is down on the ground, this posturing position with his hands where they're a little bit rigid. That's this almost seizure-like activity response after a brain injury that's an outward sign of a concussion. And so here we see him down. We heard the hit to the ground with his head. We see that upper limb posturing sort of similar to like the fencing response we'll see in sports. Very clear outward sign of a brain injury or a concussion.
Met him at the rim. Orleans Noel. He hit the floor hard.
First impact.
That was scary to see. But Jaylen Brown's fall might have been even scarier. You see, 1 second, Jaylen was flying high, living his dream. And the next, he was in a nightmare.
Smart on one side by Wiggins to the right.
Another serious looking concussion. Here again, we can see that hand position. That's going to be part of that posturing response that you can observe after an athlete's had a head injury.
He's concussed.
Totally defenseless.
And then you can...
I like when announcers point that out and it's obvious because sometimes they'll try and, he just got his bell rung. Nice to hear that they just straight out say, yeah, it's a concussion.
When the arms
clench,
tighten in that spasm, that...
And his eyes. Did you see his eyes, how they rolled back?
Dude could have lost his career, but nothing like the rookie year Shawn Livingston had. You see, Shawn Livingston was the #1 draft pick and about to be the next Jordan. But that all came to an end when his knee folded.
Livingston, that's a good defense by Mobley.
The announcers here said he dislocated his patella. He actually had a knee joint dislocation, far more serious, multi-ligamentous knee injury. This is not typically anything that's going to be like limb or life threatening. It can be limb threatening if there's damage to the blood vessels. It is unbelievable and a miracle that Livingston was able to recover from this and have a successful.
Man, that was devastating. Tore every ligament in his knee and went through the worst knee injury in NBA history. It took years to recover,
I would agree.
But his return was triumphant because he helped Steph become an NBA champion. And when Metta scored a layup, dude got way too pumped. He was on the path to destruction, and James Harden was in the way.
Shot blocking. Artest drives and finishes. And the Laker crowd fired up. And a shot as Harden goes down.
World Peace elbowed him. And he hit him with an incredible
Bigger thing you got to worry about in these cases isn't so much concussion, but an actual skull fracture. So here, as our test at the time comes through and with his elbow, that back part of the elbow, the olecranon process, is essentially just bone. There's no padding covering it. And so this is a direct shot to an area behind the ear that can cause fracture at the base of the skull. Very serious potential here for more than just a concussion.
And he's been ejected.
This man was out for heads. But look, some injuries aren't about the heat of the moment. Some are just accidents that go horribly wrong, just like Jamal Crawford's injury. Because we got to talk about the time he was nearly paralyzed. Watch when he first tried to block a shot, and the next moment, he was carried out on a stretcher.
Trent crossed the lane, he now has to turn back the other way. 2 to go in the shot clock. And we got a foul coming up. It's on Crawford, who hit the back of his head on the floor as he came down. Jamal is shaken up, and Fred Tedeschi out to have a look.
Hoiberg tried to beat the clock on this play as they kicked it out.
Pay attention to just the severe hyperflexion in his neck here. So as he comes down, that chin coming down towards the chest is going to be hyperflexion. Again, similar to what we talked about with Morris. Still concerned for cervical spine neck injury. They're going to stabilize his neck for a precaution here. These injuries where there's an external force that's moving you always have the potential for more serious injury compared to Morris, which is an external shove, whiplash. Here, when you're landing, when there's an external load, a helmet, another player, the ground pushing into you, more potential for that neck, that spinal cord to be injured. Absolutely more seriously concerning here. Could have been very bad and potentially paralyzing for Crawford, no doubt.
Watch him hit the back of his head. Oh man, goodness. It was a spinning carton.
That would make you think twice about playing basketball, but Gordon Hayward's injury was so bad, it gave twice the pain. You see, it was an historic night. Gordon Hayward's first game with the Boston Celtics and a fresh start to his career. In the opening minute, the crowd looked in anticipation and came down with a horrifying twist.
This is the guy that probably hit the biggest shot in Cavs history. Hayward has broken his leg. And that...
Yeah, this was brutal. I remember watching this game in real time. I don't know if I was doing my YouTube channel yet at this point, but Hayward suffered an ankle fracture dislocation. Similar to the elbow, whenever you dislocate a joint, simple dislocation means there's no fracture, just the joint is perfectly out of place. Definitely injuries to the ligaments. Complex dislocation is going to be when there's an associated fracture. Extremely rare to have an ankle simple dislocation. The majority of the time there's going to be a fracture. This was like the worst case of what could happen with a mechanism like we saw with LeBron. Very significant injury here. Again, not something that's going to like threaten your life or limb, but can easily end a player's career or just impact them enough to where they're not going to get back to the level they were at before. You're going to try to reduce it there on the court. You're going to try to get the joint back in place, stabilize it as best as possible, get them off to the hospital for imaging, quick surgery to re-stabilize that.
Really just felt awkward. The beauty of
the big thing here with Hayward that he mentioned isn't so much just the bone, the fracture, the ligaments. It's like the nerve damage that can occur, those little subtle things that can affect that small percentage of your athletic performance.
The stakes for this next injury is even higher. You see, Kevin Love was a key piece if the Cavs wanted to win a championship, and Kelly Olynyk had those dreams shattered.
Crowder free for three. Olynyk and Love fighting for it.
This is another one I think before my channel was around. So Kevin Love in this instance dislocated his shoulder, so his glenohumeral joint. We can see as he's running off to the locker room here, how he's got that left arm holded down in front of him. You can catch how there's this flattening of his deltoid prominence that's very commonly seen when you dislocate ball and socket joint in your shoulder. And this was purely because of the torque that his arm was put in from Kelly Olynyk. As this play develops here, look how Love's left arm gets bent backwards behind him right there. That position is going to extend and abduct backwards your shoulder. It's going to cause that humeral head to want to pop forward anterior out of the joint. Very prone position here for a dislocation. We're going to reduce it back in the locker room. Theoretically, he could have come back in to play that game if his pain was under enough control where he could function. Very unusual, though. Most of the time, a first-time dislocation is going to hurt bad enough. You can't return, but doesn't always mean surgery.
Yes, he did. His shoulder popped out.
Yeah, he ran right past.
He's going right to the locker room. I think his shoulder popped out. So a big moment here.
Kind of backwards,
as Kevin Love's shoulder popped out as he was battling with Olynyk.
Dude looked like he did that on purpose. Losing a look, the NBA gets even more risky. And Kevin Durant knows a thing or two about that, because KD had already hurt himself early in the playoffs and rolled the dice on his return. But with everything on the line during the 2019 NBA Finals, the Warriors needed all the help they could get. So Durant came back from injury early to save the season. And boy, was he a hero. The Slim Reaper was carrying the Warriors to the third straight championship until the worst happened.
Ibaka trying to stay with Durant, knocks it away, and Durant slipping. Durant goes down holding his leg. It's the right.
Yeah, this was brutal. So Durant, of course, had an Achilles rupture here. We can see him grabbing at that posterior back portion of the ankle. And again, not a overly dangerous injury, but definitely something that can be extremely impactful to a player's career. We're going to see how guys like Damian Lillard, Jason Tatum do in the upcoming seasons after their recent Achilles ruptures. Durant didn't really seem to be that affected like we might have expected at the time of his injury.
That put him out. And credit Serge Ibaka. And there's the play right
Remember, this was, I think, one of the first times where we could all see that pop, like the snap and recoil on the video replay when people started to pay attention to what you'll visually see. When that tendon ruptures, that recoil from the muscle contracting and pulling upward, backside of the leg.
By that, and the players are telling him not to be doing that.
KD popped his Achilles, and the Warriors' championship dreams were dwindling away. But things were about to get worse. You see, Klay Thompson was still balling for the Warriors. But as he took flight for a dunk, his landing would change the Warriors' dynasty forever.
Here as he lands.
Thompson running the floor, and a foul. And Thompson grabs his left knee.
This ended up being an ACL tear for Klay.
Now writhing in pain.
Look as he comes down and lands here, that position of his knee. So he comes down and lands, that foot is pointed outward, that knee is going to buckle inward as his body is leaning over that affected side. Knee going inward, that dynamic knee valgus, the foot externally rotated. This is the perfect recipe for, unfortunately, tearing your ACL. And of course, then the Achilles rupture, just everything culminating, I think definitely had a big impact on Klay.
Klay Thompson obviously in some pain. He grabbed that left knee right away.
Knee goes inward, ACL tears. You can even see a little bit here as we slow this down, how as the ACL tears, you're going to see the tibia, the shin bone, go forward because of the deficiency of the ACL, and then pop backwards as the weight comes off the foot. So right there, you're actually seeing that tibia has shifted forward, and then as the weight comes off, boom, it pops backwards into its normal position in the knee.
Just imagine what else the greatest team ever could have done together. But even childhood heroes aren't safe from danger. Because what Kobe Bryant went through put an end to a generation. See, it was 2013 and Kobe was torching the Warriors and put the Lakers on his back to make the playoffs. But the load became too strong. Injuries piled on. First it was his knee, then it was his ankle, and last came the needle that broke the camel's back. We didn't know we were watching a legend crumble right before our
Durant,
eyes.
right?
What happened next had everyone in tears. He wasn't going to go out sad, though, and showed us why he's Mr. Mamba mentality and sank 2 free throws through the worst pain of his life.
And he is hurting, but the Lakers down by 2, and they want him in.
This is an important lesson. I think sometimes we'll see injuries on the field or on the court, and people say, well, they're walking, so it can't be an ACL, or they're walking, so it can't be an Achilles. There's other muscles and tendons down in your ankle and foot that can help compensate a little bit to some degree when you have a bad injury like this. So there's a lot of variety. Just because you see somebody need to be carried off, or you see somebody able to walk and stand and shoot free throws like we saw with Kobe here, it doesn't mean that a significant injury like an Achilles is impossible. Obviously with Kobe, his Achilles, he's at an older age. It's going to have a much bigger impact on an explosive guy like Brian. And so this is going to be more detrimental at his age with his position compared to somebody younger or somebody at a less explosive sort of position.
Beat him at the free throw line. Got it. Made him. Don't ever question the heart, the emotion, the grit, the tenacity of that guy.
Man, it took everything to take Kobe out. But what happened to Derrick Rose stopped what could have been the greatest player of all time. You see, Derrick Rose was one of the best players in the league. Dude won an MVP when he was just 21 years old. Nobody in the league could stop Rose. But even stardom isn't safe from injury. You see, Rose and the Bulls were in the playoffs, handling the Sixers easy. Rose was making a regular play and had his life changed.
Look, we're looking to sweep you guys. You wanted us. You were crying out that you bypassed the harder team in Miami Heat.
Rose came down bad on his left foot. See him holding onto his knee and down.
So this was another ACL tear, unfortunately, and I think definitely altered the trajectory of Derrick Rose's career. Pay attention to the knee, and remember what we talked about Klay Thompson here.
On the left foot. Now
there, hops. We see that knee is going to buckle inwards right there. Boom, that knee shifts inwards. Body's not able to stabilize the ligaments. The ligaments fail. Unfortunately,
you never want to see this.
Damn, the world just fell in love with Rose, and he was being taken from us. And Rose didn't go out easy. He rehabbed and came back stronger. He returned to the court and showed us why he was the MVP. Everything was back on schedule until Rose relived the nightmare. Nobody could believe it was happening again, but against all doubts, he came back and has been in the NBA every year since. But look, we've hit our last moment on our list. We got to talk about the most dangerous injury of all time, because Paul George left everyone in Las Vegas with a horror story. You see, PG was playing with Team USA in 2014. All of NA's finest were on the court. George was hooping in the scrimmage. A normal leap for a block turned into a war wound.
It was a little bit too fast for his own good.
Yeah, so I think we all remember this one again before my YouTube channel was around. Unfortunately, Paul George suffered a fracture of his tibia, fracture of his shin bone. You can see the opening here at the base of the goal, and as he comes down, his foot got stuck in there and everything twisted and bent. Bones are not good whenever you bend them. They're good when you load them and compress them. That foot got caught, pivots, and he unfortunately cracked.
Nice contest for the foul of Paul George as Paul George shaken up as he ran into the stanchion.
In this moment,
George
they're trying to
suffering
stabilize
a serious lower leg injury, and we're going to take a break and come back right after this.
Everybody was devastated. PG was rushed to the hospital. Thoughts were racing. Would he ever be the same? Or even worse, would he ever play again? And it was not looking good. But George kept hope. He stayed in the gym.
Interesting on this, you can actually see he's got an incision up here by his knee. So whenever they treat these fractures, they're going to put a rod down in the tibia, and they often go through the knee to get the rod down into the tibia. So there's going to be an incision up at the knee. That rod gets passed down in the tibia, and then there's going to be some screws that go in down below and up above to help anchor it in place. And, you know, the video said this is the most dangerous injury in the NBA history. I would completely disagree. I don't think we talked in here about Rudy Tomjanovich, the punch, the spinal fluid that was leaking. Honestly, as bad as a fractured tibia looks in terms of a broken bone, remember, you're not really injuring a joint. You're not injuring the ankle. You're not injuring the knee. You're typically not suffering any significant ligament or soft tissue injury. And so despite it looking really gruesome and being a lengthy recovery, there's not really any impact directly on the stabilizing joints, ligaments, etc. And I think an ACL tear has more potential to be career altering than a tibia fracture. Now, if you get something like a complication, you know, an infection, things like we saw with Alex Smith, that's a whole different story. But a routine managed, no complication tibia fracture, despite looking so bad, really doesn't have as much potential to be career altering because, again, you're not affecting the knee, you're not affecting the ankle. Those important stabilizing explosive structures are okay. Bone heals pretty reliably well. So while it looks bad, I would not say that this is the most dangerous injury. So a lot of serious injuries in that compilation, a lot that look worse than they actually are. Remember, it's oftentimes the things that maybe don't look as gruesome. It's going to be the neck injuries, the spinal cord injuries that have more potential to be dangerous than things like the broken bones or the torn ACLs. When you're talking about the functional impact, usually ligaments, joints are going to have more impact than muscles and broken bones. But anyways, I hope this was interesting to take a look back down memory lane, touch on some of these historic, definitely concerning injuries that hopefully we won't see much of again. Thanks as always for watching the video, everybody. Let me know any questions or comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you later. Let me know if there's any other videos you want me to react to and review with injury compilations.